righty, and welcome to this latest VirginiaPreps.com Zoomcast with the Coach Ed Young. I am Matt Hatfield. You hear us on Saturdays, 10 a.m. to noon on ESPN Radio 94.1 during 757 Saturday Sports Talk. And you'll hear us this coming Saturday, the 22nd of May, from the Hoop Group Southern Jam Fest at the Boo Williams Sportsplex. Always a fun time out there. We've had numerous guests over the years, Ed, such as Jay Billis of ESPN and Tim Legler of ESPN. A couple of years ago, one of the years you were missing, we had Kenny Anderson, former NBA guard, New Jersey Nets, Georgia Tech, along with Steve Keller, who we generally have, as well as Rob Kennedy from the Hoop Group. So it's always a great time out there to see some of the youngsters and all the various travel teams, some from Virginia, some outside of Virginia, and kind of the blending of the shoe companies. And you see a lot of talent. I remember one of the years, just a few years back, you had literally on the floor in the same game, Miles Bridges, Bam Adebayo, Thon Maker. That was the front line with Boo Williams and Team Loaded going at it in one of these fierce battles. And there'll be some new flavor this year. Team Takeover's coming down for the first year I can ever recall. The much ballyhoo travel team from D.C. You'll have Boo Williams. You'll have Team Loaded. So it'll be a lot of fun. You might see some future college hoop stars. You never know, maybe a pro or two.
No doubt you're going to see a bundle of Division I, future Division I's, and probably a handful of guys that will get a shot in the NBA. It's happened almost every year. This is one of the top tournaments around. Hoop Group is tremendous at running. Rob Kennedy is one of those guys you can talk to and not feel like you got to take a shower after talking to him. And there are some guys on that circuit that give you that feeling, but he's not one of them. He runs a class group in the Hoop Group. And Boo, of course, does a great job up there. And I'm looking forward to it, getting back to a little bit of normalcy, some basketball, some fans getting out and about. I'm excited about it and really look forward to it.
Yeah, Ed won't be doing handshakes, but he might do fist bumps, and he will sign autographs for you if you come on out there and see the coach. And he'll also talk socially distance any prospects out there that want to see him and possibly wear red and black.
Yeah, if you want to look good in the red and black, I don't have any problem talking to you. My autographs are free if anybody really wants them, or you can give me yours. I'll take yours instead of me giving you mine, however you want to do it. I'm just glad to get out, number one, because we haven't been together on a show in a long time.
It's been a while, yeah.
Yeah, my contract doesn't allow me to travel a whole lot during COVID, so I got the small print in there. And hopefully it'll be good to get to see Al. Who's going to be at the station? Is it Dino or
I think Dino will
Kyle?
Be back it'll be Dino or Kyle, but I think Dino will be back in the studios.
Bringing what's the saying? Bringing the band back together.
There you go. And before we get to our NBA playoff preview, let's recap two things. One, our over-unders for the season. We did 3 of these on our video show back in November, December, somewhere in the holidays. I think it was December. And then the play-in games from the first 2 nights, which you and I and our back-and-forth picks were not all that successful with, thanks to the Hornets messing it up for both of us against the Pacers. The Wizards messed me up. You had the Celtics. And then last night, I was able to sweep it with the Lakers beating the Warriors as well as the Grizzlies taking down the Spurs, but you did have San Antonio, so I guess we're even up there. Any thoughts on the play-in games? The Laker game went down to the wire with them and Golden State, which could not hold on to the double-figure lead. LeBron with the amazing shot at the end. Anthony Davis came alive in the second half for them. Grizzlies able to hold off the Spurs, who charged late. Some whispers maybe this is Popovich's last rodeo. We've kind of rumored about for a couple of years that we think if there's ever going to be a female NBA head coach, Becky Hammon might be on that bench with Popovich to be that coach. And the first two games on night one were blowouts. Not that interesting at all.
Play-in is interesting. Little tournament they have. It involves more teams. It's funny. You can lose it. In the one game, you can lose it and still play. The other one, you lose it, you're out, and that depends on how that seeding goes. Everybody was sweating the Laker game because there's a lot of people, those in the know and those that don't know, think the Lakers are the team to beat in the playoffs. You're coming in as, a 7th seed, and you're the favorite to win the whole thing because of LeBron and AD. And nobody wants to talk about Suns and Jazz, 2 of the best teams all year. And it's funny. And then the other team everybody's talking about, the Nets, and I think, they're a 3rd seed? Aren't they a 3rd seed or 2nd seed
Nets
coming in?
Are a 3 seed with Durant, Harden, Irving, 3 of arguably the 10 best players in the sport. And the Lakers are a defending champs, but they're not an underdog, folks. They are favored technically against Phoenix.
Yes.
With an MVP,
yeah, they are.
Chris Paul and an all-star and Devin Booker. So,
but it's amazing how this has gone, how the play-in, people still didn't understand it. People thought it was like tiebreakers. It really wasn't tiebreakers. They just allowed more teams in for whatever reason. Some people to avoid tanking maybe towards the end of the year and win the lottery instead of going as A seed and getting pulverized by the number 1 seed. If you want to get rid of tanking, you're going to have to probably put half the league in the playoffs for the most part. If that's the reason they're doing it.
Well, you're kind of doing that already. You got 16 of 30 teams, and you get these 4 extra, teams, if you will, in the mix. So it's really like 18 teams in contention once the regular season's done. I don't know how you solve the tanking issue because you have it in football. You don't really have it in baseball in a 162-game marathon. But definitely the Oklahoma City Thunder were one of those teams trying to tank, although the Clippers did a better job of tanking, or I should say basically blowing the games intentionally, if you will, the last couple of games. They had a guy who had a shot block 6 or 7 times in that game. He was so insignificant, I don't even remember his name. But even though the Thunder darn near messed up for me, they came through and beat the Clippers to give me an over win of over 21 to get themselves a 22W. So a check mark there. Got a check mark on under 45.5 for Boston and under 34.5 for Houston, which I had the minute James Harden got dealt. That to me felt like a cinch. So 3-0 for me. You nailed it with over 38 for Phoenix, over 40.5 for Portland, thanks to their late season run. Although Terry Stotts could be on the hot seat, we shall see here in this playoff as they're about to begin. And you did not get it on over 31.5 for Orlando. So 2-1 for you, 3-0 for me. We'll see how these 4 first-round series go, as we'll know the 1-8 matchups coming up after these next 2 nights. But we do have the 2-7, 3-6, and 4-5 matchups. But the Clippers really the ones taking it on the chin here, Ed, with their, what do you want to call it? It's not even tanking. It's resting. It's basically taking a dive, isn't it?
Well, a lot of people said they are trying to avoid the Lakers. I just don't want to buy into all that mess. I just don't. I guess I'm a little bit of a purist when it comes to sports, that teams are going to give their best or do what you're supposed to do, what's right. I can't figure them out. I think the Clippers are better than what they're showing. Now, I know Leonard supposedly played hurt all year. I don't know how much that had a thing. And the only thing that the NBA, one of the things the NBA needs to fix is guys sitting out games to rest for playoffs. Everybody points to the playoffs in the NBA. Everybody says the regular season means nothing. I don't buy into that. You don't have playoffs if you don't have a regular season. But what I think they need to stop doing is you cannot sit out games if you're not injured on the road. When you go to opponents' place, those fans should be able to see you, especially if it's the only time you're coming in there all year. So if you want to sit out a game because you want to rest, then it has to be a home game, and it has to be prior announced, so people aren't paying big money for tickets and the studs aren't playing. That's the one thing I think that has to happen right off the bat. No, I don't think you should put the whole league or half the league in the playoffs. It does water down somewhat the regular season. But I'm like you. I'm not sure exactly how you handle tanking if they're really doing it. The lottery, it used to be the worst team picks first and so forth. Now it's the lottery balls they put in there, and the team with the worst record does have the most chance to get a higher pick. So you're not guaranteed the first pick. So I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, because back in the day, you just didn't have these kind of things.
No, you didn't. It's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out. All right, for these 2 play-on games that we record this on Thursday night, Wizards, Pacers. I understand you like the Pacers, whereas I like the Wizards in this one. Washington is the slight favorite after Indiana's hot shooting by 3.5. The Wizards are for this game. Grizzlies are a 4-point dog against the Warriors. I like Golden State to get that one, but I am worried about the long-term health for a run here for both of these teams that come through. Perhaps the Wizards if it's Westbrook and Beal, the Warriors if it's Curry. By game 3 or game 4 of the first-round series, they could be kind of spent. And but you're taking Memphis, aren't you, over Golden State? So you're going with the underdog in both.
Yeah, I think Golden State's a better team, especially got the future Hall of Famer on the floor in Curry. But you know what? I saw a little bit of Memphis the other night. I should have picked them over San Antonio. I guess I'm going with my heart instead of my head in terms of thinking what they used to be, and of course, I'm drawing a blank. Popovich, their coach. I like him. I'm like you, man. I think Pops could be done this year. A team kind of needs a little bit of a rebuild, and you're right. Becky Hammond could be right, and the next seed could move over. I can see that happening. But I like, what I'm thinking Memphis is reminding me of this year is Miami's hot run last year.
Wow. Well, I'll tell you what, Valanciunas, 20 rebounds. He's good inside. Jonas is. Dylan Brooks is kind of a versatile two-way guy who can defend the best team's wing. John Moran is good. I think they play a little bit too much ISO ball, and he's not as productive and exciting as he is to watch. Not always the most efficient. So I'm not crazy there. But they did play the Warriors tough last weekend, coming from behind, almost won that game if it wasn't for Curry going bananas. So if it's all Curry or nothing, it could be dicey for the Warriors. That is true. That is true.
Yeah, I think if Curry's in his 30, 40, 50-point game mode, yeah, the Grizzlies are in trouble because they don't have that playoff savvy, what you need. Morant is a tremendous talent, but he's got to learn the NBA pace, the NBA level, and he's going to get there. And he's kind of like the main guy, being a youngster. You need to have that veteran leadership. But I know I'm behind you one game. I'm going to roll the dice and go a couple against you, see what happens.
He's going to go with the two Bow Wows there. Golden State represented by a 7.57, if you want to call him that guy, in Kent Bazemore, who played his college ball at Old Dominion, hit a couple early threes. But you do also wonder about the Warriors' psyche coming off this heartbreaking loss to the Lakers. They come out a little flat, have to play catch-up. Could have a lot of steam taken out of them. I just don't trust Jenkins, the coach for the Grizzlies. I've watched him enough late in ball games. He's a little bit sketchy for me in some of these big spots. So, all right, let's go. Where do you want to start, with the West or the East here for these first-round matchups? Where do you want to go for the breakdowns in the pick?
Well, I remember somebody saying go West, young man, so let's go West.
Go West, he says. So let's go with, we know 2 versus 7 is going to be the Lakers as the lower seed, but the favorite for the series. They're a 2.5-point dog for game 1, however, but they are favored for the series at Phoenix. I think Phoenix will take game 1, Ed, but I got the Lakers in 7 in this one. I just feel like you might see a little bit more Gasol, by the way. You might see him play a little more. Drummond, hasn't been that impressive to me inside. Anthony Davis is going to have to play 40 minutes, a lot to 4 and to 5 for them. Dennis Schroeder could be the poison for this Laker team. He already wants out at point guard. He did not have a really good night, though he did have a key and one in the fourth quarter. So much is on LeBron and Davis's shoulders. Can you get shot making from Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Kuzma and Caruso and some of these guys to supplement and give them that little boost in shot in the arm? They got that from a Danny Green and some other those guys in the past. I just don't know, Ed. Do they miss Rondo? You could say that a little bit, I guess. Phoenix is young. Paul has never been great in these playoffs, though he's had a wonderful year. And Devin Booker, to me, is the key to this series. If Devin Booker plays at an all-star plus level, he could swing this in their favor. But you got a lot of guys, Ayton, Mikal Bridges. I mean, outside of Paul and Jay Crowder, who else on this Phoenix team has playoff experience? And as you watched the other night with the Hornets and the Pacers, no experience for the Hornets. There's no substitute for it. The Lakers have all that, and they defend at a high level. Really the best defensive team in the league when they're healthy. I got the Lakers winning a Game 7 on the road in Phoenix to break the Suns' hearts.
I'm going with you. I'm going 7. Lakers. They look tired against the Warriors. They kind of get on a Phoenix is a little rested, but you're right, a little lacking of playoff experience. My way on a got coach of the year in the league by the Coach Association. Well deserved. He's been through a lot. I think the Lakers, if they go from 2-0, it's going to be uh-oh. But I think they can survive a first game loss and come back and win maybe 2 out of the next 3. And need to be back at home. He just can't. He usually takes it to another level. Everybody keeps talking about how the season ended quick. Ended late for the playoffs last year. They won the title. Then they had to get right back into the season. LeBron probably set the most games he's had in a long time. Davis out a long time. Something like 60-some games between them. I'm taking wild guess, which is like a whole season for one player. But I do believe in the Lakers, but I'm not giving them blanche record.
You were breaking up. What was that? Did we lose?
I'm going Lakers 7, but I do not sleep on.
Do not sleep on the Suns, but he's going Lakers in 7. All right. Well, that's the pick for the coach. And interesting to note, they'll go Sunday, Tuesday from game 1 to game 2. A little bit more rest there for that 10 o'clock Eastern start on TNT. Don't get me started on the late starts because I'm sure that'll get my dad revved up, everybody revved up. The 3-6 matchup, Ed, is pretty interesting as well in the Western Conference here, as you have in that matchup for 3 versus 6. You're looking at, well, guess who? You're looking at the Portland Trailblazers, who played the Lakers in last year's bubble, won the first game, then lost the next series of games to go out in 5 or 6. I think it was 5 as they dropped them in succession there. Denver, the 3 seed. They got it by virtue of the Clippers diving, tanking, whatever you call it. They do have, in my eyes, the MVP candidate or favorite. The guy should win it in the Joker, Nikola Jokic. They also picked up Aaron Gordon from Orlando to complement Michael Porter Jr. at the forward spots. They are missing Jamal Murray here. Lillard and McCollum, great backcourt for Portland. And the much maligned Terry Stotts, if you want to call him that, although he did get, I think, Conference Coach of the Month. Portland, they do have Carmelo Anthony, also a top 10 scorer in league history. I'll let you go first here. Blazers was one of your overpicks. The Nuggets, a team that is very well coached. Michael Malone got them to the Western Final a year ago. What do you think? This has the makings to go 6 or 7.
Yeah, I think it's a 7-game, and you're asking me today, I'm going with Nuggets. Ask me tomorrow, I'm going to go with Portland. That's how much flip-floppy I am. Great backcourt for Portland, but I think Denver's front court. And the thing that scares me about Denver is missing Jamal Murray.
Yeah.
That guy was, 20 a game, 25 a game playoffs last year for him, guaranteed. Now the load has to be spread out. The Joker's had a great year, MVP possibility. Denver can score the points. Can they stop a team? And the problem with that is Portland likes to score too, so you might get a game 135 to 134 in this series. It can go that high. But I'm going to go Denver in 7.
What's interesting about Portland? They're last in the league in assists per game at 21.3. That is a little interesting note there. But, Denver's had a wonderful year. Without Murray, I just don't know if they can get it done. I think Damian Lillard's going to have something to prove, a little chip on his shoulder here. Give me the Blazers in 6. I think they'll keep it from going back to Denver for a Game 7, which could spell trouble. I think they win it in a Game 6, maybe overtime situation where Lillard goes nuts for like 51, 53 points. If you take away LeBron, Davis, and Jimmy Butler from the Heat last year, Ed, maybe the 2 most impressive guards or players in the bubble last year during the playoff run were Jamal Murray and Donovan Mitchell, because those two put on a show for a number of nights in the playoffs. But I'm going to go with Portland without Murray here. It's asking a lot. Remember, Portland was banged up and missing a couple of key parts last year, and that kept them from making that series more competitive for a 6 or 7 game deal with the Lakers. They weren't probably going to knock them off, but I'm going to go with the Blazers in this one. Your 4-5 matchup is a rematch of last year. Luka Doncic, one of the All-NBA players for Dallas, hit a buzzer beater to keep that series close. I think it knotted up at 2 before the Clippers finished them off in 6. Clippers are to 4. Mavs are to 5. Mavs have a 7.57 great and 2-time state player of the year in Virginia, Dorian Finney-Smith from IC Norcom High School in Portsmouth. As the late Mayor Holly says, one of the best players in existence. We love going to that line. Clippers will have Kawhi Leonard. They will have Paul George. They do have Rondo. And they do have a pretty deep team for Ty Lue to try to navigate this thing better than Doc Rivers did after his team blew a 3-1 lead in last year's series against the Nuggets when he was the head man of the Clippers. Now he's the head man of the Sixers. I'm going to go with Clippers in, I want to say 5, but I'll go 6 in this one. I think Dallas, the thing that got me at, I watched them a lot this year, they would get big leads and they would let those things shrink. I don't trust them with the big lead at all. And here's another stat for them about Dallas. They're last in the league in steals per game. I think they got to turn the Clippers over to have a chance to get some extra easy baskets. I'm not sure they do so. So I think that'll keep them from holding a couple of leads. I could see them squandering a fourth quarter lead or 2 in this series, and thus the Clippers take it in 6.
Well, I'm fighting myself while you're talking. I'm going back and forth. Rondo coming to the Clippers, I think, helps them. I like Dallas, but you're right. Big lead shrink. So how do you take care of that? Don't get a big lead. Get a small lead and hold on. I'm going to go Clippers in 7, but I'll throw the famous but word in. But don't be surprised Dallas wins this.
So we each have every series so far going 7-6-6, 7-7-7. The 1-8 matchup will be either the Warriors or the Grizzlies. I say Warriors, you say Grizzlies, taking on the Utah Jazz. I got the Jazz hat today, folks. Yeah, it's a great 1-2 punch there. It's not quite no, it's not Stockton and Malone. Let's not go there. But they got Rudy Gobert, who's probably going to get Defensive Player of the Year. This Jazz team is well balanced. Tops in rebounds. Gobert's tops in field goal percentage individually. Bogdanovich, Conley, they have so many good parts. Donovan Mitchell, we know how great he can be. Is he going to be fully healthy? We shall see. I've talked to a couple people, Ed, who think if it's the Warriors, that the 8 seed could knock them off, and that you could make a case that the 8, 7, and 6 all advance in the West here. If it is Warriors, Lakers, Blazers there, you say otherwise for at least one of these series, as you've got Denver taking out the Blazers. But how do you size it up here? Utah not getting a lot of respect. They won 52 games for crying out loud. We know how good they are offensively, space the floor. They lead the league in rebounds. What gives? Show me some love to the Jazz.
This is what I'm saying. Only in the NBA, 2 of the best teams in the league all year, and people expect them to go out in the first round. Utah, I think, wins this. I think absolutely wins it, whether it's the Warriors or Grizzlies. Now, Curry playing at his best, and the rest of those guys with the Warriors doing their thing, yeah, they have a greater chance of beating them than the Grizzlies do. Because Grizzlies, again, though it'd be nice to move into that second round, they're just not playoff savvy right now. Young team trying to find himself. Warriors, they got guys that have been through this before. And, of course, Steve Kerr been through this as a player and a coach. So I can see that happening. But I'm going Utah, and I'm going to go Utah in 5.
That's over Memphis. What about if it's the Warriors? You think it might go 6 or 7?
I would go 6, but I'm going to believe in the Jazz. I'm going to believe in your Jazz minus Malone and Stockton.
Yeah, and Jerry Sloan, the late great Jerry Sloan. They got Quinn Snyder, who was one of the coach of your favorites. We know that ended up going to Monty Williams, well deserved for him or the Suns. I think it was 4 guys that had a legitimate shot for it, with Thibodeau in the East, McMillan with the Hawks in the East, fewer games for McMillan, and then the guys in the West with Monty. And, of course, Quinn Snyder. I'm going to go Jazz in 5 either way, but I will say this. I would caution that Curry is dangerous enough to force that deal to 7 if it is Golden State. But I think ultimately the Jazz, I can't see them losing in their building more than once in that type of series. Only team I can see beating them once in that building would be maybe the Lakers. And dare I say if the Clippers or Blazers are really firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, I think the Jazz are really dialed in. They've been close before. I know they think they're legit. They are legit. That's why I don't have any reservation in picking them. I know the Warriors would give them more of a problem than the Grizzlies, and Curry is, like I said, a future Hall of Famer. But it's not one guy. Even though one guy on the basketball court, if he's the top defender, or the top scorer, can make a difference. Utah just has too many weapons not to keep to win that series.
All I'm saying, before we move to the Eastern Conference here, is that, okay, they shouldn't be the favorite to win the championship, but they're top 5 in scoring defense, and rebounding with home court throughout the entire postseason. And they're not even the number 2 favorite in the West, because it's, according to the odds makers, Brooklyn number 1 in the league, then the Lakers, then the Clippers, then it's the Jazz before you get to Bucks, Sixers, Suns, Heat, and Nuggets as your Vegas odds favorites to win the NBA championship here in a 2021 campaign of 72 games plus a playoff here. All right, real quick before we go to the East, who wins the West for you, Ed? Who's your Western Conference champ?
Say Lakers, but boy, it's so hard not to pick Phoenix or the Jazz. It's just so hard, but I'm going to believe in the LeBron magic dust, and say that he gets through.
I'm going to be the crazy man. I'm not going to pick the Lakers to get there. I think Schroeder is going to be the poison. I think I said this before. I think he's going to hurt them at some point in this playoff run. And I'm going to go Clippers. Yeah, even over the Jazz. My Jazz, as I'm wearing a hat here. Even over Portland with Damian Lillard, who's my favorite player to watch in this league. I'm going to go with the Clippers. I like their depth, and I just have a funny feeling they're going to get there. I've kind of been on them for a while here, and they always disappoint. So I might as well be disappointed. But if I'm disappointed, that might mean the Jazz knock them out in the second round. So let's go to the Eastern Conference here and look at the matchups beginning with the 2-7 before we get to the 3-6, 4-5, and work our way up to the 1-8 deal. as you have, Ed, the 2 versus 7 matchup featuring the Boston Celtics as a 7. Who would have thought it, at 36-36 for the year? No Jaylen Brown, but they have Jason Tatum, who dropped 50. And by the way, not only did he drop 50 the other night, I watched Jason Tatum put a work on the really talented point guard from Texas, Matt Coleman, who played at Maury High in Oak Hill a few years ago when he played for St. Louis's AAU travel team at the Boo Williams Sportsplex, when Matt was the standout young pup for Boo Williams. And I knew then Tatum was going to be special. Didn't think he'd be top 5, top 10 guy in the league special, but I knew he was going to be an NBA guy that night, and he's going to try to lead a big-time upset over the Nets. Brooklyn with Steve Nash leading the way. They have Durant. They have Irving. They have Harden. Even have Joe Harris of UVA knocking down threes. This team is loaded, stacked. Blake Griffin, the whole deal. What do you think here? Nets in 4, 5, 6, or do you think the Celtics make this really interesting?
Without Brown, Tatum's got to score 50 every game. That's not going to happen.
Not going to happen.
I love my Celtics.
Your Celtics.
I like Celtics. I've always liked Celtics, except back in the day when they had Bill Russell in the gang and they were beating my Wilt Chamberlain teams. As I always say, Wilt Chamberlain, the most dominant player ever in the NBA.
No argument.
Case closed. No need to argue.
Yeah.
I'm going to go Nets. I think the Celtics will squeeze 2 out.
Ooh.
If one of those big 3 were hurt, because they've only played all together, I think, 6 times all year?
I saw it was 7 or 9. It's between 6 games and 10 games. It ain't much, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's surprising. But when they're all operating full cylinder, pick your poison. I'm going Nets in 6. But I really hope Celtics win it.
I think it's going to go Nets in 5. It could be a sweep if the Nets really put their foot down, pedal to the metal. I just don't think Boston has enough, and they played disjointed at times. I mean, they were hitting open shots, and Tatum was fantastic. I don't think Brooklyn's going to let him beat him by himself. So I'm going to go here with Brooklyn in 5 for that one. All right, moving right along here as we look at the next series here. All right, Ed, our next one, we have the Utah. I'm sorry, we don't have the Utah. We have the Milwaukee Bucks, the 3 seed at 46-26, the 40-32 Miami Heat, the 6 seed reigning Eastern Conference champs. I've had a couple people tell me, look, the Heat are going to take game 1. The Heat are going to win the series again. Don't trust Budenholzer and the Bucks. Their play don't work in the postseason here. Yeah, they might be second in the league in rebounds. Yeah, they might be the number 1 team in scoring. Yeah, they might have the guy that's been a 2-time reigning MVP in Giannis Antetokounmpo. But the Heat, they won it last year in terms of the Eastern Conference. They got Butler. They got Bam Adebayo. They know how to get it done. I'm not buying it. I think the Bucks getting Drew Holiday to take the spot of Eric Bledsoe to go with Giannis and with Chris Middleton will be enough for them to get this done here. I'm going to surprise you. I'm going to go Bucks in 5.
Like it. I'm going Bucks in 6. I think Miami's not quite as good as they were last year. I think Milwaukee is better. Experience in itself. I'm not a Buckholzer believer either, but he's not shooting the ball or rebounding it. And you mentioned the stat rebounding. I still think that's key, especially in the playoffs. They take care of the boards. They take care of their foul shooting. They play decent defense. Then Milwaukee wins that. I'm going Milwaukee in 6.
Yeah, I don't know if Miami can score enough. 25th in scoring, 29th in rebounds. I think your defense is solid enough. And Bam, by the way, should be on that short list with the likes of Draymond Green of Golden State, with Rudy Gobert for Defensive Player of the Year consideration because he is that type of an enforcer. I watched him a few years back in the Chance Harmon Classic play against Cape Henry, and he was just an absolute beast. Even brought up visions of Alonzo Mourning to my dad, who was there as well. I don't think they have enough scoring punch. Butler can do it on his own here. I think the Bucks will wear him down. So you're going 6, I'm going 5. Your 4-5 matchup, in a weird, strange way, this might be the most, I mean, I know Lakers Suns is, but interesting series in the whole thing. And certainly in the Eastern Conference, you have the Knicks and the Hawks, 2 teams that have not been there a lot lately. In the Knicks case, it's been a long, long time. I feel like everybody is saying Knicks in this, Ed, because if you look at the season series with these 2, Knicks took it 3-love. Knicks got it done with ease. They got Julius Randle, who, by the way, you can make a case that he's a dark horse MVP guy. Granted, he's not like this unbelievable athlete, but he's a beast inside. He's most improved guy. He averaged 37.3, 12.3 rebounds per game in that season series. but he could also easily miss first, second, third team All-NBA because it's so loaded at the forward positions in the league. And then you got Trae Young leading the way for the Hawks. What do you make here? I do wonder if the Knicks will shoot it well enough from three. That could maybe be an Achilles heel for them in the first or second round. What do you got with Tibbs and the Knicks against McMillan and the Hawks?
Well, as you said, two teams that haven't been here in a long time. Two teams that have new coaches. McMillan took over during the season. Always been a big fan of Nate McMillan back when he played JUCO ball at Shawan in Murfreesboro, North Carolina. Got to know him way back then. Great young man. And, of course, Tibbs did a great job with a dead franchise in the Knicks, made him relevant again. And if it wasn't for Monty Williams taking at the beginning of the year maybe a worse team in Phoenix and going a little longer, Tibbs is the coach of the year. The thing about this is if both of them have playoff jitters or do some dumb things, their opponent will have the same thing. They're not playing somebody that's been there a while and has shown they belong. Maybe it's because it's New York. I'm going to go New York in 7. I think it's going to go long. I think all games will be close. I think you'll see some dumb basketball at times, but I think you'll see some interesting basketball. And it's, two teams with not a whole lot of named players, but that's okay too. I don't need to watch a game that has superstars. I want to see guys that are good. And Randall has done a good job. Trae Young has always been, since he's been in the league, the leader of the Hawks. Let's see some other guys step up. But I'm going Knicks in 7.
I'm going to go Knicks in 6, but I will say this, as we almost agreed across the board here. I think the Hawks are getting slept on and disrespected to a degree. I mean, I think that this team has played really, really well outside of Trae Young, who's another guy that could get easily left off first, second, third team All-NBA because the guard position is so loaded when you look at the likes of your Hardens, your Irvings, your Currys, your Lillards, your this guy, that guy. The whole league is full of guards. Westbrook, Beal. You don't hear his name mentioned with some of these prominent guards, but he has been one of the bright, young, shining stars in the backcourt in the NBA. But, you got Capella inside, who is a real force. I mean, he's tops in the game in rebounds. And they have shooters. They had a couple of games where they really shot it well. So there's a lot that goes in their favor there, but the Knicks play defense. And I think this is the type of series where they're going to lean on being the league's #1 rated defensive team in terms of scoring defense, fewest points per game allowed. I think that'll carry them through. But if this does go to a Game 7, I would actually reverse my pick. I don't think the Knicks will win a Game 7. I think the Hawks would actually pull that out. So I think the Knicks have to get it done in 6. A little bit similar to the Portland-Denver series. I know the Knicks have the home court, but I don't think the Knicks want to play with a Game 7. I think they want to get done in 6. In Portland's case, we know they want to keep the home situation, not let it go to a Game 7 in Denver. But this is the biggest toss-up on the whole board to me. I don't think that's a definite that the Knicks advance. But it would be pretty interesting if you get Knicks and, say, the Sixers, and that's your 1-8 deal. You have the Sixers playing, in your eyes, the Pacers, who lead the NBA in block shots per game. In my eyes, the Washington Wizards, who are #1 in the NBA when it comes to, I think it's like they're in three-point shooting, either makes or percentage. They're right up there in some of these categories. So Sixers, either way, you think it's easy for them? I think not so fast, my friend, if they get one of these matchups.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going with Sixers probably in 5 with either team.
Ooh.
But, yeah, I would, but I say it a little hesitantly because Knicks and Hawks playing with house money, the way I look at it. I don't think anybody expected either team to be there. One of them was definitely moving on. So, just do what got you there. But I think the Sixers are much, much improved from last year. And, of course, I'm a big Doc Rivers fan. But I do think the Sixers win this in 5. I think they're that good, and lack of playoff experience will show to whichever one of those two teams moves on.
Don't forget our guy that's on the Sixers from the 757, who you had some hellacious battles with when he was at D3.
Yes.
Michael Scott, who got Southeastern District Tournament MVP on you after you beat him twice in a regular season, and he said, "Take that, Ed Young," and got it done against you.
Mike was a thorn in my side, but he's a great player, good young man. He's probably got the best tattoos in the NBA now. And he's been around a while because he's been wanted. He's been on a lot of teams, but you got to be wanted to be on a lot of teams. So he's finding ways to get it done. So, and he seems to most years. So more power to Mike
As you've gone a little funky and clunky on the audio. But I will say this: you're going Sixers in 5 of the way. I'm going 7 if it's the Wizards. I think they're going to make them sweat style. I'm going to go 4 with the sweep if it's the Pacers. How about that?
Wow. Okay.
That's what I'm saying. One last.
I'm going 5. I'm giving one.
You're going 5. Okay. Well, actually, 2 more things before we finish up here. I'm going to give you a stat here before we make our Eastern Conference pick and our finals pick. Name the only team in the NBA that has not played an overtime game all season long.
Oh, boy, this year, who did not play overtime? Wow.
We might give away a T-shirt or something if someone can get this on Saturday. Didn't play no.
Wow. Can I have a clue? Is it West Conference or Eastern Conference?
Yeah, I'll give you a hint. It is a Western Conference team who is in the playoffs.
And they're in the playoffs.
Yeah, in the playoffs.
I'm going to throw a dart, see where it lands, and say, dang.
That's not it.
Still after the playoffs.
Who's that?
No dang. Give me Warriors.
Well, they're not in the playoffs yet.
Oh, I thought you meant it's still active, period.
Well, I was going to give you of the 7 that have clinched at the moment. But it's not the Warriors. I'll give you a second guess since it's not the Warriors.
Okay, so it's somebody that's already in Warriors in the regular.
Warriors went 1-0 this year in overtime games. So not them.
Okay, I got you now. How about Dallas?
Dallas went 1-0 in overtime games as well, as did Portland. Not them. The answer, and by the way, it's not the Jazz who are 0-3 in overtime. It's not the Lakers who are 5-1 in overtime. It's the Los Angeles Clippers. Only team in the league not to play an overtime game all season long.
All right, that's surprising. I was going to throw my second dart might have been Clippers.
Oh, well, there you go. It was Clippers. By the way, watch them play like 3 overtime games with Dallas now in the first round. So nix that stat. Eastern Conference, who you going? Philly, Milwaukee, Brooklyn are the favorites. I'm assuming you're going to take one of those 3, but which one is it going to be? Who is your choice?
If they're all playing well and they're playing together, it's hard to go against the Nets with the 3-headed monster. It really is. So I'll take them with Philly right behind them.
I'm going with Milwaukee. I think it's their time. I'm going with the 3 seed. Yeah, I think I'm going with a 3 seed in the East and a 4 seed in the West. And there are people that believe they could both lose in the first round. I get that. I think I had them both last year. I think last year's circumstances made it different. And, of course, this year's circumstances are challenging nonetheless as well. But I think Giannis and the crew, I like the Drew Holiday edition. I wasn't as high on it when it happened. But I think they find a way. The one thing that does give Philly a leg up over the other 2 is they don't have to play both of them. They might play just one of them since Brooklyn and Milwaukee would see each other in the semifinals. And that could be a knock 'em, sock 'em, Raptors, Sixers from a couple of years ago, down to the wire, 7th game, overtime type of series with those 2, with perhaps the Bucks and the Nets. But I'm going to go with Milwaukee. So that gives you a Laker. And you're going with who's your pick again? You're going Brooklyn?
Lakers and Nets, just like everybody else. And I kind of hope that it would not happen, but I'm staying with it.
Who wins? Give me your finals winner.
Lakers in 7. I hide my face as I say it.
All right, I'm going to go with Milwaukee to beat the Clippers in 6 and win the NBA title. And I'm probably one of the few that believe that could happen this year, although last year they were the favorite with the best record in sports. So maybe they get it a year later. We shall.
How about, didn't we have somebody on this show once say Milwaukee will not win an NBA title in the year that what's that mean?
You were breaking up again. Try that again. Take 2. Something about Milwaukee and the NBA title.
Yeah, I think I'm the guy that said when Giannis signed an extension, Milwaukee will not win an NBA title in the next 5 years.
You did.
I say that?
So that means you just have to get your head shaved when that happens. And then I also said a couple years ago that if Denver won the NBA championship, I'd buy the entire Max Media building Chicken McNuggets, which is not applicable to this year for 2 reasons. One, it was done last year. Number 2, Jamal Murray's injured, so that made the whole declaration void. So there you go.
Yeah, I think without Murray, it would be tough to go all the way.
Well, we're looking forward to the NBA playoffs. There are some 7-5-7 flavor in the postseason, as we mentioned with Finney-Smith and Mike Scott, some guys that play their college ball in state. We know about UVA guys like Joe Harris, DeAndre Hunter, Kent Bazemore, ODU. So there'll be some neat connections that we'll follow and storylines throughout as we go to July and talk some hoops with you. Give us a call anytime on ESPN Radio 94.1. Make sure you listen. 757 Saturday Sports Talk. Give us a follow on Twitter at 757 Sports Talk. Check us out on VirginiaPreps.com and ESPNRadio941.com every Saturday, 10 a.m. to noon. He is the coach, Ed Young. I am Matt Hatfield, and we'll see you this Saturday from the Boo Williams Sportsplex in Hampton for the Hoop Group Southern Jam Fest. Take care, everyone.